Okay? So later, if you give me your details, maybe I can ask the officer to email to you the number of cases and whatnot. Huh? And then why this termination benefit and what are the other benefits are excluded? This is something beyond, I can't be able to answer this question. Before I joined the department, I think all this already in place. Okay, I told you in the schedule, the employee, domestic servant is an employee, but certain parts, I showed you in the slide, they've already excluded them. Because maybe at that time the legislators did not, this issue of domestic servant was not an issue at that, even in 1955 and all that. Most of us do not, have not had the idea of having a domestic maid working and helping out in the household. But now it is a rampant, it is the amount is very, very significant. 400,000 or 350 to 400,000, like any slide. It's a big figure. So we have to recognize it as it is. Because of the recognition, we have made amendment to the Act. We got a provision under Section 1022M for the minister to make a regulation, and we have already drafted the regulation, we have already circulated, and if you find that though you are excluded from Part 12 of the Act, but with the contract of service being in place between the employer and the domestic maid, then all the benefit for a start will come in. Especially we are more interested in the rest days. What we are proposing in the regulation is that if the employer, he must grant a rest in a week, one rest day, and if he wants the maid to work on that particular rest day, then he should pay whatever rate that has been provided under the Employment Act 1955. So if you ask me why, it is a very difficult question, but at least we are moving now, because I think the ministry has taken note of the significant number of domestic servants and the problems in this particular sector. But mind you, ladies and gentlemen, it is easy to sit down there, but then from the enforcement point of view, we have lot of setbacks. And then enforcement is not a workplace where you can just walk in and read the place and then, but this is a resident, and sometimes the amount of dogs they have, amount of the fans, I mean, just an example, I'm not exaggerating, but as enforcement officers, we have to break and go in. You see, these are some of the problems. And then when you go into a dwelling house, first thing they ask, where is your warrant? This is a dwelling house, you're not supposed to even step into my door. I mean, these are some of the enforcement problems that we have. Okay? Then, I affected your...
You earlier stated that those are the proposed amendments.
Yes.
Right? So, there's a phrase there, I think, section that states that it is only provided for the local domestic workers. So still it excludes the foreign domestic workers. So like you just said now that you're doing a roadshow, then why not include all the stakeholders when doing like some kind of consultation, public consultation, so that you can rephrase or you can redraft again those points that you're going to amend, so that everybody, all workers, all the employers, the NGOs, and the government will sit down and talk together, so that it would be fair enough for the foreign and the local workers, because foreign domestic workers are also workers. It's not only local workers are workers. So I think it would be fair for all, for everyone, for all the stakeholders, if you are going to draft and propose a new amendment for this Employment Act, because for me, even if I'm just working here for a year, but I can feel that the policies, because some employers, for working a year here in Malaysia, some employers wants to hire a foreign domestic workers that they feel that they could live harmoniously inside their household, but still they are prohibited to hire foreign ones because of these many policies that being implemented. So I feel for the domestic workers, especially the foreign ones, it should be fair that all the policies should be, we are included, not excluded.
Okay, I'll take note of that. Okay.
Thank you very
because
much,
this amendment, the proposed amendment that I touched this just now, is just a gist of it, and we have already collected all the input from the various agencies. And I think once, if the draft is out, maybe I will suggest that we have another round with the stakeholders. That means not just by website, you know, in a face-to-face kind of a discussion. But we rest assured, we can discuss. But end of the day, the government makes the decision. Okay? Consultation, yes, we provide, but we have to be fair. Okay, not listening to just your domestic servant organization. We also must be fair to the employers also. We must draw the line. That's important. Okay? Now the next question is Karuna. Karuna, sorry lah Karuna, Miss Karuna, sorry. I've known her for so many years, I just call her Karuna. Karuna, I'm afraid I don't have I think best that you maybe talk to the Bar Council themselves. First and foremost, whether they forwarded it to the Ministry of Human Resources, we must establish that, and whether that has been addressed to the right department for action. And maybe if you can get this committee on, they have a committee right on this, so get them, maybe you can get feedback on that. Huh? Yeah? You want to like, wait, let me finish. Okay, then I can go back early.
Take your time, please.
This is not the end, Bruno. The question is just the start, the tip of the iceberg, okay? Okay, then about Mr. Ng, I wonder why you're saying we are not an agency in the recruitment exercise of foreign workers. Where you got your, MEF stated that. Then you should ask MEF, don't ask us. First thing. Second thing, no, Mr. You know what very important role we play. We issue the JCS, job clearing system. Only then, with that only the employer can go to the KDN one-stop center and get the recruitment. So our role in our department, in fact, is deeply involved. If an employer wants to employ foreign workers, he has to put it into the job Malaysia and then wait for a specified time to prove that he is not able to get the local. So our duty, we don't want to make it easy for the employer to just walk in and get the foreign workers. How successful we are, I'm not sure. But that is our duty through the job clearing systems. So when the employer wants a foreign worker, he goes into our system and then for a specified time he advertises the thing on not being able to get the particular workers or foreign locals. Only then we will give a certificate. If we ask for 100, we have our own policy, a DASA that's already out in public, where we control. If we ask for 100, we will trim it to maybe 50 or 60 or maybe even 20. Look at whether he fulfills the condition. Only with that JCS, he goes to the one-stop center, and then they will look at the application and then approve. So that's where our role is, sir.
I think maybe they are referring to the actual recruitment process, whereas where your business coming up with a private employment agency.
No. We are in the actual process of the recruitment. Yeah, Mr. Gopal.
Yeah, thank you, okay, so my question, you say that finally the JCS approval is from the Human Resource Ministry, where you study the application to recruit foreign workers. Of course, we are running away from the domestic workers. Now we are talking about the general migrants. If that's the case, why some manufacturing companies are having more than 95% total workforce foreigners? What happened recently in Kulai Jaya, I was made to understand that factory itself they are having about 90% foreign workers, with due respect, okay? Because you are telling that the ACS approval is given by the ministry based on the application, but it is a known fact, the entire world knows as the name of the company, I forgot, JCY. more than 90% of the workforce are all foreigners. Not only that company, within that Kulajaya area, there were more than 15,000 foreigners. So how it happened, when you are telling the ministry is studying the application, from there the ministry justifying what is the number required. Again, my question, what is the ratio that the ministry is following when approving the application to recruit foreign workers?
We have already got a quota set up, Mr. Gopal. Okay, for every, if it's a manufacturing, I'm not in that section. For manufacturing, it is, if for every 2 employees there, they will give you 1 foreign worker. Okay, that is the policy. But what happens is, now to get locals to work is a very big problem the employers are facing. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. Locals do not work in the 3D sectors totally. Okay, and operation has to go on. Okay, that being the case. So maybe I'm not sure, Mr. Gopal. So we have to approve because this operation has to go on. Locals just don't want to work. Okay, they want to work in a very conducive aircon kind of situation. And sometimes when we talk to the employer, you get me, Mr. Keswan, you get me the local. I will today. Plantation is having acute shortage. Then the plantation construction also, none of them want to work. So you can expect maybe 100% of them being employed. I mean, foreign workers are employed. That being the case. The other aspect of it, Mr. Gopal, I like to clear this, is that there are 2 ministries involved and other ministries also involved. Okay, some of them, I'm not accusing anything. While the JCS we are trying to control, but at the other hand, the other ministries, sometimes the approvals are just done. I don't want to go into that. No? Okay, I'm sure you all are aware of what is happening. Okay, Mr. I better not go into that too much, Mr. After that, too many questions will be. Okay? Yeah, coming. So you are happy with the first question, huh? So we are involved. In fact, we are involved very directly, and we have a committee chaired by my DG, Mr. Jeffrey. I think most of your senior unionists know. And this committee, we table all the application, and it's very transparent. Okay, at one juncture, Mr. Jeffrey, I think most of you know what kind of person he is. He also said maybe we should rope in the anti-corruption officers into this committee so that there won't be any kind of accusation or allegation that this thing has been manipulated or there's some corruption or some malpractices in this committee. We maybe want to rope in these people there so that we want to be transparent, unlike other committees. And the committee itself is set up so that every application is discussed and then the approvals are given. Okay, sir? Okay. Now your second question, I think you give me your email, I will provide you because our topic is only on domestic servant and the other anti-trafficking, and you deviated and went into minimum wages. Good, it's okay. We don't have this closed door policy or you have to wait for another forum to discuss. We are here, we have to answer. So we have taken cases, Mr. We have prosecuted. And recently what we are trying to do is, we have a special squad. We go down to the field and then rope in the locals and then we conduct the raids. And that we have been successful. I can give you the figure, how many so far we have compounded, how many so far we have prosecuted, and the fine and whatnot. Mr. On minimum wage. Okay, you're saying the 10,000 I have not paid the minimum. Yes, we are aware. We are aware. But you must realize, as usual, compared to the 800 odd thousand employers, we are only having about 400 odd officers. So you can see the ratio. According to ILO calculation, they say if an officer enters the premise this year, it will take him 7 years to come back to visit that workplace again. So the acute shortage of officers compared to the number of employers we have. And then if you draw in another 300,000 of domestic maids employers, can you imagine the figure and the number of officers we have? Okay, and
you are very important person. You said you are implementer, enforcer officer, very important people.
no, I'm sorry. don't personally attack. I'm just a human being. We are trying to carry out our job. But I'm just comparing, Mr. The number of employers, and then now we have taken over the minimum retirement age and then the minimum wage. These two acts we've inherited it. We are the enforcers, the Labour Department. We have put up our papers to JPA for the recruitment, and they say no. At the moment, presently, status quo. Please continue whatever that you have. How to enforce? Two acts. We have 11 acts from the term. The Labour Department have 11 acts to enforce. And on top of that, they have to do the job Malaysia, the carnivals, for the employability of workers, and at least there are about the number of activities an officer has to do. Tremendous amount of activities got to be done. Getting the people with disability for work, and then the single mothers, the drug addicts. So many other activities are also being carried out along this line. But our core, that's why some of the old industrial relation officers are beginning to say that the Labour Department has deviated from its main core business. You must come back again. Your role is just enforcement of law that you have to carry out. Only then we will try to get rid of this kind of abuses. On the other hand, while this is taking place, we are also trying to self-regulate the law itself. Self-regulate, that means you don't have to have so many permits, so many permissions from the Labour Department. You just carry on like the 104 hours of work, overtime maximum, right? You have put in the regulation, employers just follow. When we do the inspection, there's no compliance, then punitive action will be taken. We are taking that. And one thing for sure is that as we are moving towards a developed country, I think employers also must realize, must follow the law, and employees also must follow the law, so that you don't need so much of regulators to regulate the law. At the moment, that is not happening, so we have to beef up the Labour Department. The 300 or 400 odd officers is not sufficient. Okay, Mr. The figures I will give it to you. And then successful prosecution, yes, we have successfully prosecuted. And got conviction also. For each, I think there were 4 employees who were not paid the minimum wage. Each case was, the court fined them $3,000. I'm just giving you, that's the thing I got, but I don't have the figures with me. Yes, Mr. Gopal?
Most of the issues are with the non-unionized sector. So we are not denying in the case of Seremban, there are 18 decisions by the Labour Office where minimum wage is concerned. But now, the employees are taking up the matter for judicial review. So the poor worker where got money to challenge that. It's not ends up there. In the case of Seremban, I was made to understand there are 18 decisions by JTK. Of course, I mean, award is favorable to the workers. But employers are challenging at the poor worker where there is no union, how they want to get the money to challenge the decision in the High Court. So,
MTUC must provide money.
You can answer that.
That is the judiciary freedom that we have.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Luella Mirafentes from the Alliance of Progressive Labor. Actually, I'm Alliance of Progressive Labor. Actually, I volunteer help with this activity. I just want to ask, do you have any hotline in the Labor Department, sir? Hotline, where we can call anytime? You have. And
Not any time, but during office hours.
it's a hotline.
After you put me wrongly midnight, you call, then there are no officers to answer. Yes, the lines are all there.
It's not a
The
hotline.
website. You can-
Because anytime anything can happen inside the house. So just wait for the officer.
No, if anything, it means employment issues. Criminal
Yes,
issues.
between
Because employment issues, you can call them on a day.
no, I mean, if yes,
Criminal
yeah.
issues, then 24 hours.
The foreign domestic workers, yeah, because we are living inside the parents' house. And do we have any venue to where to lodge our complaint or entertaining them? Anytime also. Where to lodge a complaint? where to file a complaint.
Complaint, or how do you?
Yeah, how to file.
We have, okay, can you sit down, madam? Thank you for the question. Hotline is something, yes, maybe we should think along this line because, you know, you don't know when things can happen, and then maids are sometimes made to work even at night and then 24 hours. So maybe we should try to consider, we'll see what to be done on that now. Then on your second question, what we did recently in order to try to minimize this kind of abuse, exploitation, especially on domestic maid, was that we had a roadshow. In fact, we went throughout the country whereby we fix a date. We call the employers to bring in the maids, and we have a half-day session. I think Annie knows about it. We have a half-day session with both the employer and the domestic maid, and we tell them the provisions of the act and whatnot, and then officers sometimes pull out the maids there and then just question them how's your situation, how's your work, and that kind of thing. So that at least they know their rights, they know what is the law in store.
You mean you will request the employer to take her
Yes,
worker?
yes, we did that, and it's
Is
still
it
on.
regular, Mr. Kasumi?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not regular, is
You
it?
know, important.
How often do you do it?
How often, huh?
No, because this is very
No.
important.
But sometimes it's also about budget issue and all that. But we went through. I think Annie is well aware. We have the figures. No, it's not a joke. Please.
Yeah, but-
Okay, we have done that.
Okay.
And at the same time, we have also printed out a small booklet to give to these maids. When they come, we give to the maids, and so that they are aware of their rights and where to contact, all the numbers, telephone numbers and all, and we have given out. And the problem of this kind of nature must be tackled at the source. That is, what we believe is at the source country. Your source country agents are also not agents, angels. No? Now they are one of the biggest culprits. They exploit and then they put the whole blame onto the Malaysian side. No. You see, both sides, both of them are and sometimes the domestic make themselves make it available. Okay, they also they work together with the agent and they get the job and everything is happy. Okay, but when something goes wrong, suddenly they say they are victimized, they are trafficked and all that. But they themselves volunteer. There have been cases of that nature. So this issue of maid, I think it should be tackled at the source. I mean, the source country, we must, through our memorandum, impose that they conduct this kind of one-day induction course, telling them about our culture, about our law, about what is in store. So at least when you move in and come in, you know, you're aware. I think that we have already started that. Yes, madam?
How can we get a copy of the booklet that you just mentioned, that you said was given out to the domestic workers?
How can we get a copy of the booklet that you mentioned was given out to the domestic
Okay,
workers?
how can I pass it to you?
Is it electronic? To Naganita, you can send it to Naganita,
Oh,
and they will get it to me
okay,
overnight.
okay.
Okay, the other thing that I was going to ask with what you said, you mentioned that there are corruption problems really on the sending country side as well that contribute to the trafficking.
I didn't say corruption.
Okay, not
Sometimes
corruption.
they charge exorbitant rates.
Yeah.
You know?
It is corruption. Well, sounds like corruption. That when it's on the other side, if both countries are contributing to it, but I would have to say that if we can cut it off on the Malaysian side, we cut it off in Malaysia. So, I mean, even if there is an issue with corruption or whatever you call it in the sending country, that if we do something about it on the borders of Malaysia, we still stop it. We can still stop it within this country by cutting it off, by not allowing it to come in, and by stopping it by what we do.
Thank you for that wonderful insight on the Malaysian laws and regulations dealing with domestic workers. But I was wondering, like, we talked a lot about the laws, current situation, as well as domestic workers' right violation and everything. But I just want to know that what are the education that is given to the employers of having a domestic workers or hiring a domestic workers in their vicinity? Because you see, a lot of has to do with, because a lot of employers consider themselves that, hey, I'm Malaysian and I'm all powerful, I can do whatever with whoever, with my domestic workers, that I own them, right? They consider domestic worker as a modern day slavery, it's a part of a modern day slavery process, right? So what type of education do we, Malaysian government actually provides, or is there, or should it be adopted? Because adopting, taking in a domestic worker is more like an adoption process of a child, right? Because they live inside that house, they live inside that house, they're always there, and it's not like any other form of work, right? So there should be some form of education, there should be some form of interviews that should go into regulate the process. That's one. On the second level, it also should be minded that if domestic workers, if as an individual who wants to employ a domestic worker from a foreign country, there should be a certain amount of a background check on that the employer should go for, right? Whether he has some criminal offense, whether he has some businesses that associate, or he is associated with, like for example, massage parlor or whatever, or he have other businesses that he wants to be in. How many does he have? Currently holds domestic workers in his vicinity, whether he actually needs it or not. I think this type of vetting out process should be implemented to have a clear aspect on who gets it, who gets to have it, and how is the process actually run. Is Malaysian government going through it? Oh yeah, I'm Ashik, volunteer Tanah Ganita, researcher for MMU. Yes.
Okay, thank you for your suggestion. Very good suggestion.
Actually, this is not a question. It's just only an added comments on the about the for the repatriation of domestic worker. Because me as a migrant worker also, before we come here in Malaysia, we undergone pre-departure seminar that that our government let us know our rights as domestic workers who will come here, and it's a good comment on that one, that organize and reach out and organize. That's what we do every Sunday that we are having our day off. We had a the enhancement program from the embassy and the church. And the problem is when these domestic workers get a degree, a certificate that we are allowed, what's this, caregiver courses or other trainings, then we become like a bit boastful, and we look for other employers or other good work that compensate us higher. And Malaysia is been also a free country. I could say I'm working with a foreign employers. So I don't know those workers who are working with Malaysians. So what I say is that our embassy is opening to all migrant workers that we should be organized. We should be we are given our rights to be like this and blah blah blah. But when it comes to other employers, like in our condo, there are still employers who hold their mate type, like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, but Philippines, that you can see less. I don't so yeah, that's all. Okay.
I give the mic to Annie for
Thanks, Bruno. I just want to respond to what Karuna said. I think what Karuna said is very important. Though it's a question, it's really an observation, because the consultation on the management of migration, comprehensive policies here, that was done way back in 2008. And my constant, whenever I speak to different stakeholders, I also go back to the forums that we have conducted and the recommendations that have been provided. What is the follow-up to this? And I think it's important to do that. And as much as I can't give you an answer of what the follow-ups have been, that is conducted by the ILO in Jakarta, I suppose, with the Bar Council. I can follow up with the Bar Council to find out what has been the the response to the action plan which came out, or recommendations which came out from that round table. Because I have gone through the papers that the practices and problems are still remains. But having said that, we can say at least there's now a review of the Private Employment Agencies Bill and also the Domestic Workers Regulation. And there's an important work for stakeholders, especially that it's still in a build stage, that there should be adequate consultation before it's enacted. And going on, in terms of, I think Lorraine raised this question, what's the mandate of the anti-trafficking unit? For the ILO, we work on 3 key areas, and one of the key areas is also to build capacity for stakeholders. And in terms of building capacity, we actually train labor inspectors on the labor dimensions of trafficking. And we have conducted some trainings already, and some of the key areas of this training actually trains the labor inspectors to identify what are the indicators of forced labor. You see, because basically, like what Mr. Kesavan said, that some of the guidelines the ministry is using is like 3 months of wages not paid, but the ILO guidelines goes further to show what are the indicators of forced labor. And the trainings have also brought experiences from the labor inspectors from Brazil. And why we had brought the experience of inspectors from labor inspectors from Brazil to share their experience here, it's because the government of Brazil actually takes ownership that there is forced labor in the country, there is child labor in the country, and when that's ownership taken by the government, what resources are provided in actually addressing the forced labor situation. And also, what are the some of the areas of training is like how do you conduct rescue, raid, what are the legal framework of the international framework. So all these are the kind of areas that has been provided in training for the labor inspectors from the Ministry of Human Resources. And we also provide capacity building for labor attaches from your countries. We do this in a quarterly basis on different topics so that they are able to provide or put mechanisms in place in the embassies to provide support services for the domestic workers. And we're also working with the Malaysian Employers Federation to develop a practical guideline tool on the management of foreign workers. And on the third goal, we are also working on direct support services where we support MTUC and also Tenaganita. And the direct support services we provide through what is known as a Migrant Resource Center. That means the domestic worker can go to this Migrant Resource Center, or somebody can contact these Migrant Resource Centers to help them to address some kind of labor dispute or to represent them at the labor court, industrial court. There's trainings on labor rights and also organizing of workers. That's the key role of MTUC. And in terms of Tenaganita, they are working towards promoting decent work for domestic workers and also for other migrant workers. Last but not the least, what I would like to say, the ILO actually works on a campaign known as Migration Works. Does it really work? But that's what we're calling it. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, put out an 8-point agenda to talk about migration and development. In that he says, in the first action plan, to respect basic rights of migrant workers. In the 5th point, he actually says to the countries to promote positive attitudes towards migrants. And in this respect, the ILO here in Malaysia runs a campaign on promoting positive attitudes towards migrants. We have developed a public service announcement. We would like to just show it to you very quickly, which is less than 1 minute. And so we'd like you to also join this campaign in promoting positive attitudes. The target is really the youth of Malaysia. We'd like to create awareness among the youth of Malaysia. What are the real experiences of migrants in the country? And also the contributions that they make to the migrants, to the economy and society of Malaysia. Thanks. So we're just going to show you a public service announcement which promotes positive attitudes.
Any comments on the presentation?
So
many. Yes. Is it fit for Academy Award?
Okay.
This-
I just want to comment on certain things. Being in helping domestic workers for 31 years now, okay? I think there's a lot of discussions and meetings and I think domestic workers, NGOs, unions, I think we have come to a stage of talking with each other, finding what is the problem and moving. But I think the problem, the major problem is up there. It's with the state and with people who are involved. I always ask my question, I think there's no political will to change. Honestly, there is none. Ministries don't gel together. We can come together and talk, and I think Annie is the witness. We had Commando meeting a couple of years ago. All stakeholders were present. Right? We talked for days. We came up with recommendations. There was said we have the political will to change. And what has happened? We recommended very strongly that the expert on labor is the Human Resources Ministry. And we said anything to do with labor, the Human Resources Ministry should be the one. You're not just an enforcement, Mr. Kesavan. I'm sorry, but you're the expert on labor. And I think must take pride to say the Human Resources Ministry is the expert. So you should see the overall of all labor issues. And one of the strong recommendations with the Employers Federation and others who were present was that the Human Resources Ministry should take over anything dealing with labor and not the Immigration Department. Just like in many other countries, we made Hong Kong understand that. We made many other countries in the region understand that, and they changed. And the labor became the expert and took over foreign labor, local labor, and also that is streamlined. But unfortunately here, we are still struggling, and it looks like the scale. Where's the scale of justice? It is we talking, we asking, we sitting down, recommendations go up there, but very little move is made. So for me, the question is, what else can we do to move there? We can be talking and having conferences again and again, but what will move up there is my question. Rethink maybe our way of working. We're not even open to let everybody come and speak. Domestic workers and us up there in the same platform. And this is the same as in many other government agencies. So I think we should maybe have another session, not looking at issues and problems, but what will make us move forward means together. And implementation. And I think that is important, and we are not questioning that. So I like to just take it away from the normal thinking. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you. Any further comments? Or no? You go on. Because I have some comments to make.
For the Kasavan, Mr. Kasavan, we had this regulation. Now, what is already in the stage of the ministry discussion on the new regulation, that we would like to know the time period, or you have how many has responded, or maybe you go back and put forward our views that we need faster, because these people have been waiting. We have about 200, 300,000 domestic workers in Malaysia. That estimatedly, I think you should know some of the figures. I think over here we also have like from where is it? From embassy, I think this morning from Indonesian embassy. So many has participated in this forum, and many Filipinos, Indonesian, and Malaysian. So we need to know
what are the protection for them, especially the new regulation as we mentioned in the case. Yeah. Yeah.
Just one last question. Mr. Kesavan, we know that early this year, the MOU was supposed to be signed between Malaysia and Cambodia for the domestic workers. And this is from our counterparts, the feedback. One of the reasons that Malaysia rejected that MOU or did not want to sign the MOU was because there was a clause that stated employers must respect the basic rights of domestic workers. So my question is, what is the position of the ministry when it comes to the human rights of domestic workers? Thank you.
Silam, thank you for your question. We have, in fact, got all the inputs from all the relevant agencies and NGOs, and it is with the DASA, the policy division. Now they have to put the whatever proposals or recommendations from the various agencies, and then I not able to tell you at what stage it is, because once I give you a conviction here, say that okay, this stage, we're going to get it through by the next parliament, or by this need not have to go to the parliament because the minister is empowered to do the regulation, so it can be done without even going to parliament. I'm not in a position to answer your question at the moment. Okay, what I'll do, I will find out maybe from the DASA. Actually, DASA is the one who's controlling. I think all the inputs have been collected because the department drafted the regulation, then we pass it on to DASA. Now the policy division has to collect all the inputs, and then what I propose is that once it is all tabled, once it is tabulated, all the inputs and the draft is out, I would suggest that to Pon Betty, I think Annie knows that we'll have at least 1 or 2 rounds with the stakeholders, face to face, table the thing, and then get further, because sometimes you in the website you might not be able to understand the thing, what actually we are trying to put forward. So maybe a face-to-face engagement with all the stakeholders would be a better, maybe there might be some other new ideas that might come. And we must also respect the rights and the comments from the employers' organization also. We must weigh, and then finally we have to make a decision. Silam, I hope.
Yeah.
So one thing, as far as the Ministry of Human Resources are concerned, labor legislations are not, I'm sure you know, with Mr. Bruno, not easy to push through, because sometimes we get objection from the employers. Okay, like in other acts, we normally have engagement with MTUC and MEF, Malaysian Employees Federation. Sometimes we get FM also on board. Sometimes when we table, one party does not agree and the other party might agree. So we will try to get a kind of a balance, and as far as possible try to get consensus from all the stakeholders. Then it will create a harmonious situation in implementing the act. So in that aspect, sometimes we are not very, it is time consuming. Okay? So Salam, I hope I will be able to, or you can call me, you have my email, and you can drop a note. I'll get further, maybe from Pon Betty, what is the stage where we want to move forward. But whatever it is, sometimes when our side is okay, when we push to AG, there sometimes it's time consuming again. No, they have so many other legislations to look at, and sometimes it's time consuming also on the other hand. Okay, on the other question of MOU with Cambodia, I was not involved in this. But your question was very general. What is the Human Resource Ministry as far as? I think we have to treat employee as an employee, employer as an employer, and everything is in the Employment Act. It's all stated, your rights. Even in the IR Act, you say what's your rights. We honor all that. So you don't think that we are more sympathetic to the employer. We don't. We don't take this domestic servant lightly. Yeah, you know how serious it is. We have already come out. The beauty of it, at least there is a regulation that is rolling out, And there's already an amendment to the act for the minister to make a regulation. That is also a good achievement. So from here, we have to now develop and then see whether we can rectify the convention. Ultimately I'm talking, maybe if it's the right time with all the amendments in place, everything is in harmony, why not rectify the convention itself? Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Just a few comments. Start with Gloria. On the MOU on foreign workers from Cambodia. I happened to meet one delegation from Cambodia, and they were talking about this amendment. And I told them I'm MTUC, and I've never heard of this MOU that you're talking about. Now you are working with MOU from the Cambodian side to the government side. Why don't you consult MTUC? Because we are the main labor representative in this country, and we can take your concerns. Till today, they said they will send me a copy. I sent MTUC a copy. Till today, nothing. And you are NGO, and you're talking about something in the MOU, which the government is, Malaysia is saying that they are concerned about the protection of the clause on protection of. And this is a surprise to us.
It came out in the papers, so that's how we knew.
Yeah. What can come on the papers is fair enough, but why are these groups operating independently? The government of Malaysia and MTUC, they are answerable to MTUC. So many of these countries are doing their own private MOUs and MOUs. We are cut completely out of the whole picture, out of the loop. Now when you talk about domestic workers in the Employment Act, it has been there since 1955. These exemptions and all these things. Now it's 2014. Now since 1955 till the late 90s, domestic workers as per the Employment Act relate to local domestic workers. And local domestic workers are normally from the village, are the same of the employer, they are distant relative. So the emphasis on rights of domestic workers never was a concern for anybody. Nothing, it was not a concern at all. Till the foreign workers came on shore in the mid-1990s. And when exploitation took place. Now what happens when the foreign workers came into the country? They were subject to the same law as local workers. Do you know that all local foreign workers at that time in the 90s have to be enrolled in EPF? They started off, have to be enrolled in SOXO in the beginning. They were supposed to go in. Now when you enroll in EPF or SOXO, your data is logged into the main government data system. Your employer is identified. Isn't it? You're plugged into the system. Then sometime towards the end of 1990s, the government or EPF says, oh, too many foreign workers are coming, we can't trace the nominees and all kinds of minor, insignificant reasons. They came out and said, oh, foreign workers don't need to register EPF. Then they said, oh, no need to put in the SOX also. We put a workers' compensation. This is what they call so-called self-regulation. But it's not self-regulation. If you look at it, if you examine it very clearly, it's unplugging the workers from the main database. You unplug from the main database, which means you don't know who the employer of the worker is. You don't know. You can be jumping from one employer to another employer. There's no accountability. So when you unplug the workers from the main database, easy for exploitation to take place. Very, very easy. So that system now creates a lot of problems. Creates a lot of problems, so much so a lot of people are accountable to this, including government. And this they call self-regulation. Self-regulation, as I understand it, is that you set up another system, alternate system, run by civil society. Or people, or what they call it, the statutory bodies, or corporations, which of course doesn't allow exploitation or any of those things to take place. But none of things was instituted, no structures were set up. You unplug the worker from the same system, from the main database, and you throw them to the woods. And that's exactly what is happening now. So if you want to examine the problem, you go back to history. Why that time didn't have, now we have. We don't have the system, we don't have this kind of abuse and all this with local workers. And mind you, we don't have this abuse when they are unionized workers. No unionized company have this kind of abuse. Hey, then give a system that works. There is a system that works in this country very well, self-regulated, a trade union. And what we do in all these forums, we ignore the role of trade union. Trade union, yeah, yes. Why don't you take the system that works and put it across the board? Then what about foreign workers or let's say domestic workers? So what do? Do we set up a system for domestic workers? There are two types of unions: closed shop and the open shop. What unionism we practice in Malaysia is open shop, which means you, regardless of your union membership, you can seek employment. In a closed shop system, you must become a union member to seek employment. So which means for domestic workers, you must be a union member, only then you can be employed. Because one employer, one worker, how to go around recruiting. So, so for this certain category of employment, you must have a closed shop system. So if a household wants to employ domestic workers, you must ensure that domestic worker, foreign or local, is a member of the domestic workers union, which means the union will have its own employment contract. You must subject to that 100%. And the union member, union officer can go and visit the person anytime they specified in the agreement. This is self-regulation. You are getting an organization to get involved in substitution of the government policy. So he doesn't have to hire hundreds or thousands of enforcement officers. Everything is self-regulated. So that is a few things that just came out of my mind, which I think you need to have a look at. Any issues that you go into history, you will find the answer. But the problem we are having now, like what AJL has mentioned, is that the political will. We want recommended amendments to the Employment Act, to the Trade Union Act, to the Industrial Relations Act. We find that the government, personally I find, my opinion, the government is not interested in self-regulation. Sorry, Mr. Kesar. They are only interested to expand the scope, expand your own scope, but they don't want to do a work on it. There are a lot of little Napoleons sitting in the ministry who doesn't want to give up their power. You take a simple thing, a reference by the minister to the industrial part. They don't want to give the power. They want to do self-regulation. That's the first thing you should look. You don't need to have employed so many people backroom reading all the cases, just go to court. Very simple. There are so many issues that the government doesn't have to get involved. If you self-regulate the proper civil society organizations and give them certain recognition, either through legislation or through practice. Law can be two, whether through by act or by practice. You can solve all the problems. It's not that problems are never solved. I went to one seminar on labor law, and a lot of complaints from foreign workers. Foreign workers, ASEAN foreign workers, and a lot of issues about foreign workers, this, foreign workers, that, foreign workers, that. Are all these problems of these workers, are any of the problems from any worker which is in the union? No. All of them are non-unionized. So definitely you have this problem. Then I told him, then why are you looking at the problem? Why don't you look at the organization? Why don't you help the union to organize your people? You are from Indonesia, you are from Philippines. Tell them to join the union. You don't have all these problems.
Give a clap.
And I'm told to shut up. And it's true. You set up an organization. With the problem-solving mechanism we already have. Look at the mechanism, and you can solve the problem. Thank you very much. So I'll now hand over the stage to the organizers. Thank you. And thanks Mr. Kesavan and for attending this forum. And also to all the migrant workers here for coming to Malaysia and helping us in our economy, without which I think many of the women folk cannot go to work.
Yeah, exactly, sir. Domestic workers have a big role in everyone's household in Malaysia.
Yeah. So we
We
thank you
are
very
able
much.
to send your women to join the economy, because without us, your women cannot
Yeah,
get
that's
out of
right.
their home.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. Thank you very much for your presence here and your sacrifice, your family and everything. I wouldn't want to leave my family even for one day. So I don't know how you can live for so many years.
Yes.
So for that, we thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to everybody. Miss Annie, Mr. Kesavan, very much because of your, wait. Sit.
I'm just coming to adopt the number.
Okay. We come to an end the session for today. So we have a great two speakers in the afternoon and earlier. I think we are all very, very aggressive and energetic because of the issues. I was very good to see that participation from the floor. Thank you so much from all the representatives who came from the leaders. And I think we will put some recommendation. Once we have the recommendation, some conclusion and all that, we will forward to the leaders of the organization. Thank you to moderator, Glorin, and the leaders of the union and also the others. Thank you very much. Then we break to 40 and we close. Okay, because it's already late. Thanks so much. Bye.